One of those small world things.
That is neat. Yeah. Yeah, I know. She's from,
I was just in a meeting with her a few minutes ago.
she's from Scappoose.
You gave me the whole rundown.
Welcome. This is a council special session. Today is Wednesday, February 11th. The time is now promptly 4 p.m. and I'm going to call this special session to order. The purpose of today's special session is to consider adoption of an ordinance for general service fee and referral of that ordinance to the voter for approval. The general services fee is proposed to be used for general fund staffing programs and services for police, library, parks, recreation, community development, administration, information technology, and municipal court. So we have number one, ordinance number 3321 and ordinance number 3322, adoption of a general service fee. This agenda item is to discuss ordinance number 3321 and ordinance number 3322 to determine whether the council would like to adopt a general service fee, and if so, which amount of the fee to adopt. So we'll have three components of this. One, we're going to have the presentation by the city administrator and our finance director. Then we'll get into public comment that will be limited to 3 minutes or less, and then we will have council deliberation. So with that, I think we can get into presentation.
Thank you.
Excuse me, sorry. 1 second, didn't want to run away with this. I have a disclosure I'd like to read. For the record, my spouse is employed by the city of St. Helens as a police officer. Because the budget includes compensation and benefits of the city positions, I'm announcing an actual conflict of interest under ORS 244.120 as amended by Senate Bill 983, Oregon Laws 2025, Chapter 466. I may participate in discussion and vote on adoption of the local budget after making the disclosure, just to be clear. So now let's move to the presentation.
Okay. We are here today to follow up on the conversation on February 4th, 2026. At the February 4th, 2026 council work session, we presented a forecast and budget shortfall of $2,214,000 of services funded by the general fund are to remain the same. Over the past several years, the city has used one-time revenue sources to fill budget gaps and maintain current service levels. Those one-time revenue sources are not available in future years. At that council meeting, we presented that the city of St. Helens has a permanent tax rate of $1.91 per thousand of assessed value, which is one of the lowest permanent tax rates in the state of Oregon. City Council directed staff to prepare for consideration the adoption of a $35.30 general services fee to refer it to the voters to vote on at the May 19, 2026 election. If this fee is approved, it would allow the city to maintain staffing, programs, and services at the current service level with a 20% reserve. As we were putting this together, we realized that we did not present the city with an option of maintaining a 20% reserve and making some cuts to services. Therefore, we are presenting that option today as well. Option one is ordinance number 3321. It proposes a general services fee that will generate revenue to continue the provision of existing services. The $35.30 per EDU per month for the first year. This option maintains current staffing and service levels. The fee creates a 20% reserve. Option two, which is ordinance number 3322, an alternative approach for consideration that was not proposed at the February 4, 2026 council work session, is to adopt a lower general services fee and maintain a 20% reserve and decrease some city services. So for $24 per EDU per month for the first year generates an estimated $1,757,552 annually in fiscal year 26-27, which will require a $456,000 reduction in staffing and services expenses, and it creates a 20% reserve.
Excuse me really quick, Kathy. I don't think the Zoom link may be working.
The Zoom link's not working. I got somebody on here.
Both ordinances have the following additional provisions. The fee is proposed for 10 years commencing July 1, 2026, expiring June 30th, 2035. The fee will be collected and reported in a dedicated general ledger account and expended only on general fund staffing, programs, and services described, which include police, library, parks, recreation, community development, administration, information technology, and municipal court, also known as general services. The city will provide quarterly reports to city council that document the general services fee revenue and expenditures. The city's annual audit will include a review of the collection and use of the general services fee. The timeline for this process is as follows. If an ordinance is passed at first reading today, it will be placed on the February 25, 2026 special city council agenda. If passed at that time, the city council will also adopt a resolution that refers the ordinance to the ballot to be voted on at the May 19, 2026 election, and directs that an explanatory statement and ballot title will be filed with the city election official. The election official will then take all necessary steps to file with the county elections office. Over the next several months, as the budget is prepared and presented and discussed with the budget committee, the city will prepare two budget scenarios. One is a budget if the general services fee receives voter approval, and two, a budget if the general services fee does not receive voter approval. The options today is one, pass for first reading ordinance number 3321, which adopts $35.30 general services fee to be reviewed for second reading and adoption at the February 25, 2026 special council meeting and referred to the voters at the May 19, 2026 citywide election. Option two, pass for first reading ordinance number 3322, which adopts a $24 general services fee to be reviewed for second reading at the February 25 special council meeting and then referred to voter decision at the May 19, 2026 citywide election. Option three is declining to approve a general services fee to be referred to the voters at this time. This decision will likely result in the city reducing staffing, programs, and services for the fiscal year 26-27 budget and the remainder of 25-26. The city council may elect to refer a general services fee to the November 2026 citywide election.
When you have anything to add?
Well, at our last meeting, the council directed staff to come back at the amount that was determined there at 3530 for EDU. We heard was that there's the $24 option with maintaining a 20% reserve. Before that was intended to reserve the reserve, but that's going to also require some reductions in service, which, you know, frankly, we've lost about since the ARPA funding wore out. I mean, last 4 years, I think we've lost 14 or 15 positions. So we're already at a critical level of service.
Gotcha.
Like any more cuts, you're not going to see support to boards and commissions. You're not going to see. It's really fragile right now. Even when one person's out, it's difficult to cover.
Okay.
Get the basic services. So.
All right. So that puts us into public comment. So now is the time for visitor comments. So So the visitor comment period is an essential part of local government meetings. Please address your comments to the mayor and the council members. The council will take all input into consideration. Please limit your share to 3 minutes or less. And observant for Oregon open meeting laws, this isn't a time for dialogue, but rather a time for us to listen to you. Responses to visitors' comments, if needed, will be published in the next city council regular session packet. Please provide contact information on the sign-in sheet at the back of the room. And when you come up, please state your name for the record. So with that, we will take our first public comment.
Online?
Well, we do in person first. It's all you, Howard.
Howard Blumenthal. It's in St. Helens. First of all, I'd like to say that it's kind of bizarre that we're having a meeting like this and both of them have been scheduled at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Push the work is. There really should be one of these being held in the evening when more people could attend. I'm also concerned that you guys are wanting to vote on it today that quickly. You've still got another public comment period coming up in about 2 weeks, which means if you vote on it today, really the public comments on it, the done deal. Lower services. I mean, I don't know how much lower our police department can go considering they don't really get to a lot of the things that they need to, you know, so I don't know if we'd lose that much in that aspect. I'd also like to say that, you know, $35 and then we're still paying $10. So that'd be $45 on our water bill. I don't know how much longer that $10 is going to be there for a police station. I wonder if we'll ever get built or not. So we're paying for something already that we're not even seeing anything out of, that been discussing, and money has been being put away for over a year or more. I'm also concerned that as I'm a senior citizen of 70 years old, on a fixed income, my Social Security start tacking on more stuff to me. I don't know where I'm going to be able to eventually make it. You know, I've already had to cut back on going to our local restaurants and stuff because of all the prices going up and stuff. This would almost totally convince me then that I can't go out to eat anymore in our local area because everything's too expensive. You know, I also wonder where apartments would come into this, that every single person in an apartment would have to see that they're paying $35 like a homeowner. You know, if it doesn't include people in apartments, we have a lot of apartments here in St. Helens. Those people need to pay their fair share. I've heard from the police that sometimes some of the apartments, especially the new ones up by across from Walmart, they have a very high demand for police services. You know, we need to charge this accordingly to everybody in the city. And I see this is just going to get the people that are on the water bill and people in low income water or, you know, low income housing and stuff. They'll never get to pay it. There needs to be a senior discount, if nothing else. That, you know, we already got rid of the senior discount for water bills quite a few years ago. And when I've asked about something like, oh, go to some organization, that's, you know, the PUD gives a senior discount. Northwest Natural gives a senior discount. Some of our electrical contractors and other contractors give senior discounts. I don't see why the city has gotten rid of senior discounts. Also, I wasn't really clear if you guys were asking for a special election in May that would just involve this. If that's the case, how much money does it cost to do a special election, you know? I guess that's about it. It's just, I hate to see costs go up, and I really think that we need to look at why we're in this shape now. Who didn't do their jobs to get this together earlier than now that it's a real question? We should have been doing this years ago. Thank you.
Do we have anybody else here or online? Okay, so I appreciate the comments that were just recently made, and I think it's important at this juncture to provide some clarifying information for that. The police station is going to be built, so the $10 that is going to that is going for that purpose. So there is a plan. I think moving is sometime, you know, mid 2027. Councilor Hub has been actively working on that. We also made in our ordinance the council approved later this year to add the sunset to that ordinance. Also, the beauty of the fee in my eyes is the fact that it affects every EDU. And precisely why I feel passionate about a fee over a levy, if it's ever going to be considered, is that it does affect every single apartment unit within the city, any of that. So it's not just one complex or one home. So I feel like the equality is shared throughout the city. And I think that's important. And I think it's a really important point that citizens really understand that distinction. And then this is not a special election, but I think it's fair to say that why this seems like it's a bit rushed on trying to get this through is because we have time restraints on when we have to give notice and when we have to vote these things in to get it on the ballot. We can't just do it overnight. And that's why we're looking at doing it now, but it's going to ultimately be up to the voters in May. So we're just trying to preserve the right to get it on the ballot, and then we can have many conversations, subsequent conversations regarding this. But time is of the essence, and we don't have the luxury to spend a lot of time on doing that. Is there anything based and the comment was noted about like people being able to attend as well. I did take note of that. Do any of my fellow council members or Gloria or John have anything that I may have missed on clarifying? Because I think it's important to do that.
No, and I think that you clarified very well that to make sure that people understand, instead of it being a tax levy, that it's just homeowners and property taxpayers that are paying it. It is everyone. So even in one apartment pays that EDU. So the apartment complex that is tax exempt, if it went as a tax levy, it would not, that big apartment facility would not pay anything. Where it being an EDU and it's charged on all units, an apartment building pays an EDU for each apartment. So that's a really important distinction to understand, so that way it is more evenly allocated to those who are using the services.
Furthermore, if we're doing a levy, then we don't get 100% of each dollar. Whereas if we do a fee, it goes into effect and 100% of that dollar goes to 100% of what it's being allocated for, which is to me important. Like I look at it as, I've used this analogy, having businesses, and when you use your credit card, that business owner doesn't get that entire amount you're paying because they pay merchant service fees. And so for me, I think it's important, the distinction between a fee and a levy, because if I personally am paying $1 or $10 or $20 to something, I want to know that $20 are going to what it's supposed to be directed at. And with compression and everything else, that's not the way that it works. So I do appreciate the public comment and allowing us the time to clarify that, because someone that's very seasoned in the community, that if there's those questions out there, that tells me as a council, as we move forward, that we have a great deal of education to do, which is a good opportunity to engage more of our citizens on city aspects.
Correct. And I believe that the ordinance includes, or the code includes an option for council to dedicate a certain amount for assistance. Is that correct, John?
We've done programs like that in the past.
I believe this ordinance says so.
And I think John had a comment too. What-
Yeah,
what-
no, I was just gonna comment on the comment that someone's not doing their jobs and kind of push back on that a little bit. The Oregon's property tax system is a structural defect, I'll call it, in that it only allows property taxes to increase by a certain amount, and they're 3%. And the cost of everything for cities to operate has gone vastly more than 3%. Insurances goes up by 6%, 6 to 12% a year, and just across the board. And so it gets worse and worse as time goes on. And we've been pretty good about getting grants. having assets that we can, one-time revenues that are non-recurring, like we sell some timber, we sell a piece of property, and we move that into the general fund and that kind of this this deficit. And there's a point where you just can't do it anymore. So that's where
It's not sustainable and it hasn't been sustainable.
it hasn't been sustainable.
We're being fair and we're being real. That, I am not a fan of using one-time revenue like that. To me, like chopping timber and anything like that, that should be money that is, put in a contingency fund, put in the reserves. And this council that is sitting here before the citizens today, we can't control what happened in the past. We cannot control the decisions that were made. What we control now is what we're doing today going forward, right? And in my mind, that's a three-legged stool. So we have to bring in some additional stop gaps to, sustain. We're also need to still continue to take a hard look at where we can trim fat and funds on the back end to try to save money. And then we also have to be aggressive, not passive. We have to be aggressive on trying to create reoccurring revenue streams going forward. We have to use our city assets. We have to have the vision. We have to be moving forward. We can't just rely, if we put this out there and it's voted in, that we're fine for whatever period of time. We have to actively be engaging on trying to make the situation better. And that's my opinion. Also, is the proposed fee for 10 years. It's like, I feel like it needs to be mandatory reevaluated after 5 years. Like, I think there should be a mandatory review. 10 years, I get it. But it is a long time. I think that a hard look needs to be taken because the ordinance that the council did this last year allows a provision for council to reduce the fees on our own accord, right? Or the council's accord without having to go out for a vote. So we couldn't ever increase any fee, but we could decrease them. And I think that if the citizens are going to step up and vote for this, like if they do, then we owe it to the citizens after 5 years to take a hard look at it. Does anybody? Hey, Brent. Good to see you, Counselor Sundin. Do you guys want me to keep talking, or do you guys have some stuff you want to chime in?
I didn't see any inflation on the
Index.
percentage per stated before. An increase.
I don't. Is it
Yeah.
that automatically calculated in there?
This narrative doesn't talk about that, but whichever fee it is tied to consumer price index.
So it would be
Yeah.
going up every year.
So they grow by that amount, and as our population grows, we have more dwelling units that would also build revenues as well.
So then also on these two options, 1 and 2, right? I think that my opinion is that council needs to take a look at what our objectives are, right? And what our goals are as a council as well. Because I strongly believe that we need to get 2 full-time detectives that are addressing the systemic issue that we have in this community on child porn, child exploitation, and sexual abuse. Those are our most vulnerable, citizens that we have here. We have a high amount of domestic violence, sexual assault. So I think when we're looking at these two, correct me if I'm right, but on option 1, the staffing, there's 2 open positions, right, for police.
Correct. There's 2 positions that we have not filled until we can get the budget done. And my understanding and discussion with Chief Smith is that provided we have the funding to hire those additional 2 positions, then one position somewhere along the line will be promoted to a detective. So that will give the department 2 detectives.
Regardless, my opinion is that not patrol, not anything of the sort. I think we need two full-time detectives, one on ICAC and one doing nothing else besides all the child stuff, the sexual assault, the domestic violence. That's what they would be assigned to do, because if we're going to be asking citizens to put money forward, right? We have problems in the schools. We've been in the newspaper. We obviously had an issue 30% higher than what our chief is seeing in another agency with 10,000 more people. It's just unacceptable. And at what point are we going to stop that? So it would be my opinion, and it's up to council how they also feel about it. Is it two full-time detectives that are doing nothing but that? Like the 110 cross reports that were sitting on the table in front of us, like that was profound to see. And how many little kids can continue to be victimized until they can actually get an investigation going. That is appalling. It's disgusting. And I think that we can do better. And if we're going to be talking about money, like I can get behind a lot of things, but I think we need to take care of our children in this community because we've got a serious problem here. Look at what's been on the news. We just had somebody get put away for 65 months. Somebody else, like, I don't even know. Like, I look at it and I get sick, right? There's a hearing going on right now. There was another one that got 15 years. We've got a problem. We need to solve it. So for me, that is an important factor of how I feel about these fees. So, and when we look at now I will say that I think that it needs to be adjusted for me, because I think that two full-time detectives would be around 400,000 maybe. And I think that we should reduce the 3530 to actually get down to so it'd be like 400,000 basically for the two detectives. So I'm thinking like 33 something.
For the general services fee, then we would have to reduce services somewhere else.
I'm not the only one up here, so you all chime in, and I think we have Council President Chilton on.
I would like to see those detectives come into play. I would like to see us get on that. I think it's important.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I personally believe that these are probably two separate subjects. I think while we're trying to balance the budget, we probably should not be looking at adding two detectives, even though I do believe they are important. And I have children that live in this community, so it is something that I think about every single day. But I also think it's our responsibility to try to balance a budget and allow the programs that we have and the services that we have currently to sustain. And I think that would be the intention of putting this out for the voters. That's just my opinion.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though. If I misunderstood, I apologize. The two positions that I'm talking about are already open positions.
They're open positions, yes.
So
For
it's not-
patrol officers.
But what I'm saying is I don't think they should do patrol officers. I think if there's anything that's included in this, it should be only detectives. And I think there should be a delineation for that. And I think that should be something that is steadfast.
Well, I wonder if that's a conversation with the police chief then, because I feel like that is a department decision that should be made from a department decision and brought forward to us. That's my thought about it.
We have the lieutenant here. I don't know if you're able to speak in any.
I can tell you right now, we need 3 full-time detectives. We need 2 full-time detectives just to handle the domestic violence, sex abuses, and we need a full-time dedicated ICAC detective. Those cases are very labor intensive. They require a number of search warrants and they're very, very involved.
But what do you need for patrol to maintain 24-hour police coverage in the city?
I need 6, 4, and 5. So that's 15.
So we got to get our priorities straight.
That's the minimum for patrol. It's 15.
But we've also not had 24-hour coverage for like the last 18 months. They're voluntarily working overtime. So there is a potential for them to continue to possibly do that. We haven't had enough staffing to have a scheduled 24-hour coverage. It's all been voluntarily overtime. So I just come back to the fact that I've been sickened by the presentation. And I think that we have to figure when we are more financially stable, that there's an option to maybe add more patrol or whatever the case is. But for me personally, that my focus is on getting people to help with the issue we have on our children here.
The other issue with police is that the time from entry level to higher to on their own is easily 12 to 14 months. And when you get behind, it's very, very difficult to get ahead. We have 5 in training right now. So we've been fortunate enough to hire 2 laterals back. But it is, even with laterals, it's 8 to 12 weeks of training. And if it's an entry level person, it's 16 weeks at the academy. And it's anywhere from 15 to 22 weeks of additional training on top of that.
You agree that that's where we actually need to put strategic plan in place. We need a staffing study. We need to really understand what we need to have for patrol anyway, and we need to start building a plan how to get that in the future. Right now, we're not in the budget, you know, we're not in a budget situation where it's financially viable right now. But getting 2 detectives, if we have open positions and that's where that money would go, then there would be a guarantee that they would be working on trying to protect our children.
Right. Yeah, you have the chief doing double duty right now, trying to run a police department and still dealing with child abuse cases.
And I appreciate that. I do. I appreciate people wearing multiple hats. But what bothers me is a lag time from when a child like issue is reported that could be potentially being victimized, and there is a gap time to start an investigation. That for me, and all due respect, LT, is my issue. I think people are only human and they can only do so much, but that's what's keeping me up at night right now. And then you get these news articles that come out and those littles are not old enough to vote, right? And they're relying on us to take care of them, so. But respectively, you know, the patrol side, I think that that's a strategic plan in the future on how to get people in and when we're more financially stable. But for me right now is, again, where we're at, protecting our kids.
Definitely. Go ahead, Russ.
No, go ahead.
I agree with the need. I know there's a need there. I personally don't feel it's appropriate for us as a council to say, this is all that you're going to do. I kind of agree with Jessica that I think that should be left up to the expertise of the police chief to determine what his detectives would be doing. And we as a council could say, this is our hope, this is what would be taken care of. But again, I think that's his job to designate what those detectives would be doing.
I agree with that. We can't direct staff. We can't direct a department. I'm just saying that for me to feel comfortable and to get behind is like, that is where I see the need, right? Is that we need to that. So I would agree. I mean, we can't direct staff to do anything and we can't make it mandatory for them to do anything, but
I think on the flip side, you know, you've got issues we need to have detectives, but also we've got the 2 ladies in the audience, recreation and library, and what they do for the children.
Yep.
It's totally opposite.
Inclusive,
Very important. So, you know,
100%.
guts are tough, and I don't know if
I mean, I think that falls in line, and I think you're Counselor Hubbard, you hit, in my opinion, it right on the head, because the 2 outstanding individuals we have in the audience, they are intertwined with these children, and sometimes they may be the first persons that know that something is going on with these kids, right? And they can see this firsthand. That also takes care of on option 1 to sustain those services, because those services that they provide, and I hate to be talking to you guys in a third party that way, but that is sometimes maybe the only safe environment that these children have, right? And they are mandatory reporters. They are the ones that recognize it. It's all inclusive. We have to have the services so that kids have safe places to go to and they have a positive environment. At the same time, we have to have the resources to investigate them if in fact they're reported. So that was a really profound thing, Counselor Hubbard, you said. I'm glad you brought it up.
And that's what I was going, I would like to be able to provide those resources so we can do that. That's where I'm at on that. So I don't want to see services cut. I never do. Also get it's a hard thing to have to pay more. I certainly think I'm not comfortable making a vote on this today at all. I would like to have a little more time in the next couple of weeks to kind of get this. Figure out what we're doing here. I don't want to feel rushed to do this.
What is the process? We have to come up with something today and we have to come up with something on the 28th, right, to get it on the ballot.
So the process for adopting an ordinance is to have a first reading and then 14 days later have a second reading. And there is a deadline to refer matters to the county for the election. So you have to adopt the ordinance by the date of the second meeting.
Right.
So tell me again your question.
So we would have to read an ordinance today, and then we'd have to read an ordinance again for a second reading on the 28th, whatever day it was, 24th, 28th, to be able to get it on the ballot. So today is like, that's why we had to have the special session, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So you had to have a special session. What I would like to look into is what type of amendments, if any, could be made in between now and the second reading. So that if there were some minor things that you wanted to adjust on the ordinance from the first and the second, if that is okay, or if that would require additional public comment. And that's something I just need to.
But we don't need to vote on it today.
So you need to pass it for
Well, the
for
second.
the second reading. Correct. So whether you, you're not approving anything, and again, as the mayor said at the beginning, even if the city voted on it to approve it, the first reading and the second reading, it is not going into effect. It is being referred to the voters for final approval if they want to approve it or not.
But we're asking for them to choose whether it's the,
Yes, the city council today has to choose one or the other. You could vote on both. You could make a motion to move both ordinances for first reading into second reading. And then at the next city council meeting, you could decline to move both, or you could choose one of those two for second reading and approve one of the two.
In that time, we'd be able to find out if we can amend either or. Either those.
At that time, yes, we can find out maybe if there's any minor amendments that could be made to either of them. Yes, it's getting a little complicated, but there's time to do that.
So some of the variables I've heard here are the amount and then the duration. Whether the 10-year duration is too long, that might be better, some amount less. And if that 35 is, seems like those are things we could
Yeah,
address today.
I think that I would agree with that anything that you can get finalized and revised today, we can amend the ordinance today, and that you would move that ordinance. So for example, if you wanted to approve 3321, but revise the term to 5 years, you could do that today. So any changes that you discuss that you want to make today, you should make.
I think Council President Chilton wanted to speak.
I
Can
was
you-
just gonna say that I personally don't really see an interest in moving forward with the levy. So if we were gonna pick either or, that would be my thought, would be the fee.
We are looking at the fee. It's whether it's going to be $24 or $35. We are not considering a levy at this time. Sorry, Council President Chilton, it's probably hard to hear or see on there, so. Is there?
Well, no, it's okay. I'm glad you clarified that. It just seemed like we were still treading water with both items, and I just don't see a point in doing that. So I just want to make sure that's where we were at.
And I apologize, I may have caused that confusion when you came on, because I was giving an opinion on a levy versus a fee. So maybe that's where I created the confusion. But for today, we're just looking at the two options. And also Chief Smith did join us. So if we wanted to also address anything to him directly, I think probably now is a good time as well. which was, I was talking about just my personal opinion, although we can't direct staff, nor would we ever want to, that the number one or option one has still spot in the budget for 2 officers. And my opinion is that those should be dedicated detectives for child exploitation, child porn, sexual abuse, domestic violence, and somebody to deal with ICAT. And so that is my opinion, although we cannot direct that, as Counselor Sundin and Police Liaison has stated. I think it's important to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think today's a perfect example. I just came from a week-long trial on a large sex abuse investigation. We definitely have the workload where we need to have 2 dedicated detectives, one that just focuses on child exploitation and trafficking and child pornography. And we need assistance on investigating our child sex abuse cases. There's no doubt about it. And so if this fee was approved, my intent would be to hire, train sufficient staff so we don't have any gaps in road coverage, patrol coverage, and then immediately punch 2 officers into investigations to alleviate.
Okay, so ultimately there would be 2 full-time detectives that would do nothing but to try to help our young ones.
Yes, ma'am.
I think I just want to say that I respectfully disagree. I think that we should move forward with the patrol officers, because my concern right now with the current status of the city is trying to alleviate the overtime that the police budget is crazy right now. So I believe that is the intention that we should be moving forward with. So my opinion would be to move forward with the patrol officers versus the detectives currently.
So Gloria, and I think that's a good point. Gloria, have you, so looking at the overtime, when we take in, because the overtime looks alarming, have we done a cost analysis or breakdown on what it is for 1 FTE based on the overtime? So what I'm trying to get at is, with a full-time FTE, it's probably what, 170 or whatever a year, because you have PERS, you have all the insurance, you have everything. So have we looked at the breakdown of what the overtime is versus if we would have already backfilled with the FTEs? Because my guess is we're probably breaking a little bit either even or probably better on the overtime than having the FTEs.
With the overtime to date, we've almost paid for 2 full FTEs.
Right. So do you see that, Council President Chilton, where the optics that are being put out there, in my opinion, are, oh my gosh, all of this, the overtime, because it's put as overtime, and that looks alarming. But if it wasn't overtime, it would be 2 FTEs. So it's just how people are presenting it as a deficiency, a defuncto deficiency in the department, when it's actually 2 FTEs.
I have a question, Chief, Lieutenant, do you not have people coming in that will be full-time that are coming out of the academy or laterals?
We have 5 in training right now.
Right, so you're potentially gonna have 5 deputies on the road, correct, with our current budget cycle, which should eliminate some of the overtime and provide better coverage.
As long as all 5 of them make it.
Right, sure, I mean, that's.
And again, it's the lead time is the issue. It's the 16 weeks at the academy. It's the 15 to 22 weeks in field training. So that puts us at 40 weeks out until they can be on their own.
But it hopefully will happen. Like, we have the individuals identified, they're in the training. If they meet all their expectations, we'll have 5 new officers.
I'm projecting that patrol will go back to 24/7 coverage July 1.
Okay, so
That's what we're projecting.
thank you. I thought I might have had something.
Yeah, I was gonna pipe in at some point and I want to address Councilwoman Chilton. I completely agree with her. The number one priority has to be getting our 3 shifts back up and running. And with the current people that are in training right now and the current projection of when they will complete their training, we should be able to accomplish that. So what's being discussed here with the fee would be, okay, if the fee does pass, that would provide opportunity for us to potentially hire 2 additional officers, put them into investigations, then alleviate the backflow that we're having right now. And I want council to know, I'll keep doing double duty until we reach that point. I'll keep serving as chief and as your investigation supervisor. We can probably manage that until that happens. But just with the current work volume, I don't want to see these critical cases fall by the wayside.
I want to make sure Council President has had all the questions that she wanted answered, because it's hard to be on these meetings.
Does the school resource officer, is this included in this?
No.
So we wouldn't have a school resource officer still?
No, but we are in communications with the superintendent of the school district. I was supposed to meet with her Monday to discuss some options, and unfortunately, due to this trial, I had to cancel the meeting. But I do plan to meet with the superintendent, ma'am, and we're gonna try to work something out.
And the school resource officer, the school usually participates the revenue side of that.
That's correct. A lot of agencies, it's a 60-40 split. It just kind of sort of depends on the number of instructional days that the officer is going to be there. But the superintendent has expressed a desire to get the school resource officer position back up and running in the future. And we're at sort of like the preliminary talks of what that would look like. Something that we have talked about was we're currently attempting to reclassify our code enforcement officer to be a community service officer. And if that reclassification takes place, I want to see this particular individual in our schools engaging in similar types of work that you would see a school resource officer perform until we can actually hit that threshold with the district to get funding to make it happen. We want officers in schools. I guess that's a simple way to put it. And we're trying to figure out a way to make that happen.
I would just like our children to stop being victimized. That's what I would like. Okay. Counselor Hubbard, do you have any more questions? While you're thinking, I also wanted to reiterate the fact that I really appreciate at the council meeting, the last council meeting, where you didn't want to just, move forward and you wanted to have, some additional conversation. I appreciate the fact that you stood steadfast in that.
Made this happen.
No, I mean, I appreciate that because that's what we should be doing. We're trying to make the best decisions that with the information we have. So I appreciate that.
And I'd still like to, I assume a trial balance will be coming, we'll be able to do that.
Yeah, I was out all day today, so yeah, I'll get that to you as I can.
I'm still a little worried about these apartments that say, oh, they're gonna pay, but is there any, do we have any agreements with that piece of real estate being the government? That we can't do something and then we're not getting that funds collected?
You're paying the $10 right now, right?
I don't understand what the question is.
He's trying to make sure that it's all inclusive and there's not going to be any like governmental hiccups on or contractual agreement issues by collecting the EDUs or EDU.
Okay.
You were going to say something?
I was gonna state that there is, it's a clear statement in the city code that says that properties that are exempt for other reasons for property tax are not exempt under this code, under this fee.
Good to know.
I will take this time to say I took a look and I did not find any authority to make any changes to the ordinance in between the first reading and the second reading. So the ordinance that you pass today to be read for the second reading and then vote on at the second reading, you have to, it cannot be changed. So if you want to make changes to the code right now, for example, instead of 10 years, 5 years, that should be done today.
The other thing that I think that we need to consider is regardless if we decide to pass one of these, it is my opinion that we should set up a, state of the city or like a town hall, so to speak, at the middle school or another place where people could submit questions, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of really good questions that people are confused on for finances and how they work in the city. And I think that we owe that to citizens. If we're going out to the citizens to ask them to support this, we need to give them a platform where they can ask questions and we can provide answers. Public comment doesn't get that done. And I go back to Steve Donovan at the utility rate study. That was a phenomenal exercise that allowed people to have two-way dialogue. They got their questions answered. What they came in with was not what they left with because they had a further understanding. They got the education. And I really feel like regardless of the way, if we do one of these, I think that we owe it to the citizens to make ourselves available as long as it can be done safely. We have a good moderator. That's my opinion too.
We would need to do that before it goes to for the ballot. Before it goes to ballot, we need to have that kind of, if you're gonna want to do a town hall or something where where staff and council is,
Why would it be before the ballot?
So the reason is that I believe it is once the measure is filed with the county,
The staff can't talk about it.
the staff cannot, there could be no city funds spent on educating the public. Well, educating is on advocating for.
We
the
can
measure.
educate. If people are having questions on the utility or something like that, that shouldn't matter. That is through an educational lens. That should be perfectly acceptable for for people to participate in. It's not advocating for it, but directly answering questions that citizens have pertaining to the finances of the city. That should happen no matter when, right?
Well, we could take a look at what the scope is of the presentation, but staff in the city needs to be careful about how that's done.
Because I would be willing to champion it. And if we had a good moderator in place, the rest of the council could choose to as well. And there could be questions that are submitted, but there's a lot of questions that are brewing online that they're really good questions that people would like answers to. So.
so if it goes, once it goes to the ballot, if we wanted to still do any education, you'd want to be absolutely clear that staff and council can't be advocating. They can't say, in my opinion, this and this.
In our personal capacity.
Very factual.
Absolutely. Our personal capacities, we could advocate for whatever we want. In our
Yes.
elected positions, we cannot, but we can answer direct questions related
Correct.
to the finances.
I thought as elected officials, they could advocate.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that, yeah, the elected officials can, it's the use of city funds and staff time and staff resources to advocate for the ballot measure, what cannot be done.
But we can use our own PACs.
City, yes, it's city elected officials and city councilors are free to advocate and promote the measure, however.
But
they
we
do.
still need staff to provide us the information that we would not have readily available to us, right?
Typically those resources would be generated in advance.
And we do vet that through the Oregon Government Ethics Commission to make sure that we have safe harbor.
Yeah.
But I would like to clarify that that takes a very long time. We've had to do it before for the police station talking points when the levy went out, and it can be like a month to a month and a half. So turn around to get them to review what's been presented, them to send corrections, us to send it back with corrections for final safe harbor, and then them to deem the document.
So we could theoretically, if we started now, we could have one before the May ballot.
Very fast, like, yes. but
Well, I
yeah.
think we owe it to get the effort, is what I think. What else do we, now we're down to, let's bring this back here. So we have option number 13321, which is the 3530 per EDU per month for the first year. Is there any nomenclature that council would desire to change with this option number 1? Go ahead.
Do people have the city code? So you're asking if there's any text. So yeah, any changes to what has been presented so far?
Yeah, because I thought we had to finalize that today, right?
Yes.
Okay, so does anybody have any issue with what option number 1, ordinance number 3321? Is there any nomenclature that they could like to change on this one at all? Council President Chilton, do you have that in front of you, or can you see it?
I did see it, yes.
Okay. Do you have any changes to 1?
Nope.
Go ahead, Ashley. Like, how would you like to conduct this? That we had to come up with, if we want to change anything on the ordinance, we have to do it today.
Yes, that's true. I'm trying to identify, this is not a comprehensive view of the ordinance, so. Maybe, I think it could be helpful, yeah, to pull up the ordinance itself. So 3321, thank you, Kathy. If you could pull it up from the packet, I think that's
Slide 7.
So 3321 and 3322 are identical except for the amount. And so if you scroll down, Kathy, I think in just looking at some of the firms could be. Scroll down a little further. Keep scrolling. So I guess the amount of the general service fee, this is where it says the amount and it talks about it's being indexed by no more than 3% a year. And that index is tied to an indexing rate that city uses for some of its other costs, fees and expenses. And administration billing, I think that where is the term of it, Kathy? I believe it's the top. Where scroll up, I think. And the establishment provision. Yes, thank you. Yes, so that's the term. I don't know. I just wanted to say that this in front of you.
Right, it's not the complete ordinance,
Complete
but
ordinance.
the essence of the actual denomination and that was the same.
Right. Okay, so maybe proceed based on what you've heard, if there are any changes.
Have any particular complaints with any of the wording? My only concern is that's not money for people.
There is a provision in here, under. Was it? There,
The property.
13.34060 dedicated account use of fee. Paragraph 3 is the city council may designate a portion of the fee to provide financial assistance to low income individuals. So we could make it that possible, but we could
That type of program could be something that the city council adopted after the fact.
yes,
Is that something that you've had experience doing, Gloria?
I've seen it in other cities, yeah.
How fast would you be able to get something like that up and going, do you think?
We would probably work with the community, there's a community foundation. Action team. Community action team that can administer that for us. So we would give them the funds and they would administer the program.
And the reason why was because they already have all of that stuff set in place, and a lot of the people that are low income have already been vetted.
Right. So they would basically qualify them and not the city council,
Right.
basically
And
the
that's-
city.
Right.
Thank you for finding that, Gloria. Counselor Sandine, do you have any additional comments on option 1? Counselor Cothers, do you have any additional comments, corrections on option 1?
Not an option.
Counselor Gunderson,
On both of them, I think we should have a review period after a set amount of time. Whether that's 5 years or,
Yeah, on both of them, I agree.
yeah, I would say both.
I think it's 5 years personally. I think it's a 5-year. Halfway in between.
The accounting's there, be done yearly, couldn't it? Or am I just asking if possible?
We do about a 5-year forecast when we do the budget. So technically, yeah, you could review that at the same time we do the budget each year. It'd probably be more it would probably be better to go ahead and go to the 5-year point at least, and then have the review. But we can always, review during budget just to make sure that we're on track.
That's what I
If
meant.
if we're way over the 20% reserve, then through the budget process, we can say, hey, we can reduce this fee.
Is there anything in here that the fee can be reduced?
We have it in our ordinance already
Oh.
that we wrote that council, if we recall, like, if you have a fee that's voted on, can't increase it or do anything with it, but the council that's in place can vote to actually reduce it if we're financially work.
So the reason I bring that up is we are looking at developing the waterfront and 5 years is a pretty short amount of time to get that development on the tax rolls or any other development for that matter. So I understand why the 10-year piece would be in there, but should these things develop and progress to the point where we can reduce or eliminate the fee, I think we should look at it.
I agree with you. I think that's just doing due diligence anyway. We should constantly be reviewing on where.
But there's a reason behind it. It's not just,
And then, did we bottom out? I don't think I recall hearing that if we're gonna advance, did we get a consensus to advance both of the ordinance to the second reading? Isn't that what I thought we were looking?
Decided on it yet, but
Okay, so we need to also.
can do that,
It
right?
is an option to pass both ordinances tonight to second reading.
Either way, they're in their final form once we do that.
That's correct.
Like, see, we have more time.
I'm favoring the. Because it shows you're sharing with the citizens that you're working on it. Gonna work. Can't see that. We're status quo and we're just need one.
I'm kind of on that same page. I do want to make sure that we could get, if we're doing this, I want to make sure that we get those officers, those detectives in place.
Yeah, we can't do that with option number 2. That's my holdup on it as well, that's my holdup.
What about if we were to look at a reduced fee on option 1 and maybe adjust the reserve to balance that out? Is that possible? Instead of a 20% reserve, we're at 15. I know that's less than ideal.
Absolutely, it's less than ideal. Your policy, city policy is to have a 20% reserve. And best practice is even more than that. 10% reserve, or really anything under 20% reserve, could end up in here again. So you don't want to be here again, right? With this kind of discussion, we want to start out at a spot where we feel comfortable that we will be able to maintain that 20% reserve and maintain services. So we don't want to come back in 2-3 years saying, okay, we are way under our reserve. And here we are again in needing to cut services. So we really want to ensure that we're in the right place.
And it does come down to the voters. We put it in the voters' hand on what
Yeah,
they feel is of value to them. So it's in their hands, essentially.
Are we talking about option 2 now?
Yeah.
So my question at the end there, it says decrease some city services. What would that process look like?
It would be furloughs. Probably
Through the budget committee, or is that management decision, or how does?
management decision. And we would work with the council on that, but no, it wouldn't be a budget committee decision.
About 456,000, correct?
Approximately, yeah.
I don't want to see any furloughs. I don't want to see any good services cut. It's that, I'm fine with moving them both forward. So we can take a look at it. Next, but still be in line for the reading. I'm fine with that.
And really furloughs in and of themselves are going to be cuts in services. Because we're going to have days not open that you currently have available for our community.
Problem with furloughs, and still have all the overhead expenses that are still in place. So you're not really saving that whole amount. It's just hurting the individual.
Right.
So can we, we're moving both ordinance to the next reading? And then we can finalize the language?
Well, what I would recommend, because there are 2 ordinances for adoption, is that you make a motion to move to approve the first reading of each ordinance.
Okay.
And so you're going, if somebody could make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 3321 and read it in title. And then you can have a vote on that motion. And then if someone wants to make a motion for it to approve the first reading of ordinance number 3322, someone can do that and have a vote on that motion. That would be how I would recommend to proceed, because that makes it clear that both ordinances are going to be moved to the second reading.
And then does it require a motion to include the changes?
Yes, so first, let's discuss if you were to move, we can start with ordinance number 3321. If you were to move that forward, are there any changes you'd want to see to that? And then we would include those changes in the motion. And the same with the second.
The only thing I would want to see is a review after 5 years. That's the only thing that I'd want to see.
So, what I hear is a review, and what I don't know is if what you mean is it end after 5 years and it be renewed. So what does a renew mean to you? What does a review mean?
Just to see that that we need that the need is there, or potentially that we could look at reducing it. That makes sense?
So could we put in the ordinance or in the code part that the fee will be reviewed at 5 years or whatever you choose to do as a review to determine if it can be decreased?
Yes.
Still keep the expiration, 10-year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. I would,
Sense.
Isn't that something right here where you're doing an annual audit?
Well, yeah, but that's not,
But then you mentioned the code that we already have adopted.
The ordinance that we adopted allows for council to reduce the fee. But in this one specifically, I think that if we put it out there, that we owe it to the citizens to say that it will be reviewed after 5 years. And if the city is in a more financially stable situation, that it can be reduced. And we would have to do that through that ordinance.
Right.
So that's the difference.
and so maybe for to help the community understand it a little better, that review, we put it in the code that review will happen, and it will also happen with the budget committee. That way it gives it a little bit of oversight outside of staff and council.
okay, it could be something to the effect that the general services fee will be reviewed by the budget committee after 5 years with a recommendation to city council about whether to continue, whether the fee is is.
Continue or reduce.
Okay. I think you can add a requirement like that so that that's the obligation of budget committees.
That the only change for option number one? Council President Chilton, do you have anything else for option number one?
Nope, I think that makes sense.
Okay. Anybody else have any additional changes for option number one? Counselor Hubbard, are you good? Okay.
Good.
So it looks like we have clarified option number one. So, we don't have, are you guys gonna write up the motion with the new nomenclature in it or? Yes. Okay, so then can we move over and talk about option number two? So ordinance number 3322. And if there is any nomenclature we want changed in this one, besides
Same provision.
yeah, the
correct?
same provision. Council President Chilton, is there anything else in option number two, ordinance number 3322 that you would like to see changed? We're in consensus here about the same provision of the review after.
No, I agree with that.
The other changes? Counselor Howard? Counselor Sundin? Okay, so I think that if I'm hearing everything correctly, we are, as soon as those motions are done, we are prepared. Motion on each one of the ordinance, bring them, vote on whether to bring them both forward for the next readings.
My question is, if we're voting to move both of these forward another 2 weeks, what do we want in that time period that's gonna make us ready in 2 weeks to choose one? So if we're not ready today, what's gonna be different in 2 weeks? We hoping to have in the meantime that's gonna help us make.
Help me will be a trial balance. in General electric.
I had requested that.
I just need a moment to take a look at the ordinance and make a recommendation. Okay, I have some language based on what your discussion was. One wants to make the motion. Here it is. It says, I move to approve ordinance number 3321, an ordinance to establish chapter 13.34 general services fee, if approved by the voters at a citywide election, with the amendment that the ordinance be amended to add a mandatory review and recommendation by the budget committee after 5 years.
That I move to approve the first reading.
Who's gonna read that? Who's reading the second one? Who's reading the second one?
The second one, just
Right there.
search the number.
This is
Brandon, ready?
amended to mandatory.
And read and vote on them separately.
So you're going to read the motion
Vote on it.
and then there's going to be a second, if there is a second, and then a vote.
Okay. I move to approve the first reading of ordinance number 321, an ordinance to establish chapter 13.34 general services fee, if approved by the voters at a citywide election, with the amendment that the ordinance be amended to add a mandatory review and recommendations by the budget committee after 5 years.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, Counselor Sundin.
Aye.
Council President Chilton.
Aye.
Counselor Hubbard.
Aye.
Counselor Gunderson. I'm an aye as well.
Right, I move to approve the first reading of ordinance number 3322, an ordinance to establish chapter 13.34 general services fee, if approved by the voters at a citywide election, with the amendment that the ordinance be amended to add a mandatory review and recommendation by the budget committee after 5 years.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, Counselor Sundin.
Aye.
Council President Chilton.
Aye.
Counselor Hubbard.
Aye.
Counselor Gunderson, and I'm an aye as well. Okay. There's nothing else we need to do with that. Okay, so anything else actually that we needed to address? Okay, so following the conclusion of this council work session, an executive session is scheduled to take place to discuss ORS 1926602H, to consult with legal counsel concerning legal rights and duties of a public body with regards to current litigation or litigation to likely be filed. Authorized representatives of the news media staff and other persons as approved shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the council chambers. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.